Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of Critical Conversations here on the channel Performance Check. My name is Rob and today I have the most esteemed guest. He's the keeper of forbidden secrets. He is the thunder in a storm. He has his very own special place in the eternal heart of Cthulhu himself. My guest today once stared into the abyss, and when it looked back, the abyss blinked. He is the person that Gandalf wishes he could be. I am, of course, referring to Critical Hits Publishing very own Alex, aka Captain Gothnog. Welcome to the conversation.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here today.
That's a really good impression, man. You've got a good wizard cough down.
Yeah, my kids really enjoy it. So.
Oh, that's excellent, man. So those who are watching, if this is your first Critical Conversation, then I shall take this moment just to tell you that I myself will be asking Alex a number of questions that will hopefully give some guidance and give some insight into the mind of an experienced player and GM when it comes to tabletop role-playing games. So, are you ready, Alex?
I'm very ready.
Excellent. Then I'm going to begin with the question that I start every Critical Conversation with, and that is...
Hit me.
Hit me. Alex, what do you remember the first role-playing game world that you were involved with, whether that was playing or running the game?
I actually remember really well because it was on the floor of my living room, and it was just me being as a player with a friend of mine running the original basic set into the Caves of Chaos.
Oh.
You know, that was my first experience, and we spent an hour beforehand just eating up these books because this was something new. This was something we hadn't heard of or experienced before, so this was awesome. And my first character was typed up on a mechanical typewriter.
Oh my goodness.
With a little piece of paper. He was a wizard named Lint, and so I still have it somewhere. I really should dig it out and like scan it or something because it's a relic at this point. Because this was back, so it would have been early '80s. So
yeah,
30 years ago, 35.
Well, that's amazing. I mean, to have because I mean, with that comes a massive breadth of knowledge. I mean, you have experienced D&D in all shapes and sizes.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which is something that I would really like to cover because I mean, you stand as a testament as to how the game has changed over the years, and I think that's really interesting. But to quickly go back to the Caves of Chaos, because that's something that I've never played, and although I know the name, but I don't actually know anything about that adventure. So what is it like?
Well, the name of the actual module that comes with the set is called Keep on the Borderlands.
Oh, it's Keep on the Border. Oh, okay.
Yeah. It comes with the keep, and then you've got the somewhere off in the hills you've got the Caves of Chaos, and it's a classic dungeon crawl. There are all these places that have been infested with all sorts of creatures and so forth. The first thing I ran into, besides the NPCs at the keep, was a gelatinous cube, and for that reason, it holds a special acidy place in my heart.
Absolutely, you can't beat a G cube. Well, you can, but it's awkward. It's an awkward experience. Is all
Well, now as experienced players or people who've played D&D for some time, or even if you've experienced pop culture, you've heard of this. But back then, it was new. It was like I had no idea what this kind of hazy wall of material was coming down the corridor toward me. No idea what it was. So yeah, it was astonishing, seeing it for the first time.
That's absolutely incredible. I have actually one question. I was I was actually watching one of your videos. It may not seem like it, but I do attempt to do some research before one of these. It doesn't really reflect very well.
That's okay.
But I stumbled across one of your videos, and I think it was like however many truths about Captain Gothnog, I think it was. And in that you mentioned...
That was a more recent one, yeah.
Oh, okay. In that you mentioned that you've never played an elf. And I was wondering, was that true or was that for the video? Yeah.
No, actually, I really haven't. I played a half elf once, but yeah, it just hasn't been something that and it didn't occur to me until I really thought about it. It's like, no, I just haven't. It wasn't I don't think it was a conscious choice. It just
I didn't never played an elf either. So there you go.
Yeah, so it just didn't come up.
No, that's awesome.
Well, back in the old days, the elf was actually a class. It wasn't a race.
Yeah.
It was in basic. I think it was in the basic set. It was a class. So you played an elf, and it had the whole package with it.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So you were saying about how, when you first got this set then, and you had it spread out. I actually have a question that I posed. I actually asked Barker from Be a Better Game Master on a good afternoon to give a question for this, but I didn't realize that you were actually watching at the same time. I was like, oh, so it's kind of rude, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to ask it anyway because it's a nice question.
Yeah.
And it does lead on quite nicely. Barker asked, what was your gaming environment like as starting off, or is there a particular gaming environment that you've used throughout your experience in the game? Is there one that sticks out to you that is the best or the worst?
You mean gaming environment for the players or in game?
Yeah, see, I didn't really think this question through.
Well, out of game environment, like, I got hooked up with some people in junior high who were I didn't know, but they played D&D and they invited me to their house, and so I went, and it was kind of weird walking into a strange. That was new to me, walking into a stranger's house and just starting to game with them. Of course, there was no internet then, and nothing even remotely like that for communication. So it was really odd, but at the same time, it was cool that you could just meet these people and just start playing with them, and it was okay, And we had this. He was an older guy at the time. He was in his 30s. We were all young teens, and he was the uncle of one of the players, and he would run all our games for us. So he was kind of our mentor. He passed away a few years ago now. But Bob Curtin, he was a great GM, and he had started in the older wargaming. He was from the wargaming crowd, and so then he moved into D&D and started gaming that way. So
did you have any experience with wargaming before or during or since?
Not really. I mean, my first experience with anything like that was, again, the first basic box set. So I came in after the wargaming fad.
No, of course. So I mean, as we've been saying then, so that was obviously early D&D. So you've essentially been playing basically from the beginning, early on in its creation. And I was wondering, because I think this is it'd be a really fascinating take to ask. How do you feel that the game itself, D&D, has changed for the better and the worse? Do you think that do you think it's in the right place now? Do you think it could have been better? Do you think it has been better? Or,
well, I mean, it's gone through a lot of changes over the years, obviously, and for the most part, each new variation that's come out has been sort of exciting. Like when we went from basic to first edition, they had now you had elves as a race, and now you had these other classes which were cool. So you had more to go with there, and then. Second edition brought in some really kind of cool stuff like professions and things like that, and so that was kind of neat. And then third edition, you had that's when they really brought in the skills and all this other stuff, feats, and that's when it really kind of blew up. Kind of get a lot of control, but it was still exciting at the time because I loved adding all these details that could add to a character, as we went. I like to pretend that 4th edition actually didn't happen. So we're gonna
we just sort of brush that
we're
away.
We're gonna hand wave that. It's the redheaded stepchild in the attic, and
Yes.
and then and we move on to 5th. And I think with 5th, actually, to be fair, they did actually take some kind of neat stuff from 4th, so I have to acknowledge that. But with 5th, I think they've really done an amazing job of capturing a lot of the original spirit of the previous editions and streamlining it to the point where it's quick, it's easy. The idea, the invention, for lack of a better word, of advantage and disadvantage was brilliant. I mean, as a GM, I couldn't think of a more versatile and useful tool for a GM.
Absolutely.
Because there's no numbers you have to figure out. You don't have to calculate. You don't have to think, oh, well, what would be the plus on that? It's like, no, you have advantage, you have disadvantage. That's it, and it's just nice and clean. So it clears the path for role playing and lets the rules get out of the way. And that's what I love about 5th edition now. I mean, there's still some things that I personally would change, but like I've said, I always say, every GM likes to pee in their system a bit and taste better. There's almost no GMs that play it rules as written. They like to have, they got to have at least one house rule, no matter how small.
Can you give me a few of your house rules then? I mean, as a matter of fact, can you tell me what you say do differently perhaps then? No, I want to get you started. I like this kind of thing.
Well, one of my favorite house rules, and I've used this one for actually quite a while, is and it's changed based on the system, but is falling damage and things like lava and acid and so forth.
Yeah.
I never liked using hit points for that, because to me, hit points, as it's laid out in the game, it increases with your experience,
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but no amount of experience, I don't care how well trained you are, is going to help you falling 1,000 feet. If you're a farmer,
that's very true.
I don't care if you're a farmer or you're Gandalf. If you fall from 1,000 feet, you're going to splat on the rocks.
Puddle.
Yeah, exactly. So
I love that. The amount of experience protects you from a curtain of lava that just lands.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I just never got the concept of, well, let's see, I'm a 20th level fighter, so I can stand in this lava for 20 minutes while you guys are fighting. Just let me know when you're done.
This is amazing. So I'm going to say this is an exclusive then for all of those watching. Alex, would you kindly tell people how they could deal with lava in their game other than utilizing the hit point system?
Brilliant. I tend to use just constitution damage, because the constitution is pretty close whether you're again a farmer or a fighter. There's not a wide variation.
Yes.
It still takes your hit points away, and it just represents the physical damage your body takes. That's your body is being broken or burned or eaten away somehow. You are physically being broken. So that's going to affect you differently than just getting worn down. I mean, and one of the things I liked about 5th edition is they kind of made it clearer in some of the in some of the descriptive text that hit points are meant to be more like battle fatigue. You're getting worn down. You're getting beaten. You don't actually show any damage until you've lost half your hit points. So what is it? It's not like it's not like you're getting shot with arrows. You're getting worn down, and until that last blow, takes you across the face or stabs you in the gut or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah, I really like. I know the bit that you're talking about, and I really appreciated reading that, because beforehand, if you think about it, if you every time that you're taking hit point damage is you actually being like properly hit. Every fight that you play in D&D, it's just people standing next to each other, repeatedly stabbing each other until someone falls down, and it's not quite as cinematic or
right. So,
it's great.
Oh man, when I read that, I was like pumping the air, because I had been saying this for years, and everyone's like, no, that's physical damage. You took an arrow in your head or something. No, not physical damage. It can't be physical damage. It would not increase as you go up in level if it were physical damage. So it's like, see, look, it says right there.
Oh my goodness me. Oh, that's amazing. Yes.
Take
So
that.
yeah, take that, guys. That is you just put that straight in. That's gonna work a treat. I love it. Oh my. So I mean, this is something that I wanted to ask you about because it's something I have found you, and I mentioned this very briefly when I was kindly invited to be on Roll Up and Die, the podcast that you host, and we I've been fascinated listening to the podcast because you seem like a very mysterious figure. I've said this before.
To be fair, a lot of that's Barker. He really kind of sells that. So,
that is how the legends are sown. So
I guess that's true. He's a bard of sorts.
That's right. He very much is. But I just the things I hear about your lifestyle, I find absolutely extraordinary. I mean, I don't want to come across as ignorant, but is it homesteading that you call it?
Basically, we've right now we don't have anything in the way of livestock, but we've had pigs, we've had chickens, goats, rabbits, all for food, that kind of thing. So yeah, we live pretty rustic. We heat our house entirely with wood. We pump our water outside to bring in that kind of thing. So yeah, it's
that sounds idyllic to me. That sounds like bliss.
It is cool. Although another advantage is it sort of lowers your expectations with vacations and stuff like that, because most people would consider like going to a spa or some vacation land is this great getaway. For us, a motel with a shower is like that same level of decadence, I guess.
That's amazing. I mean, the reason I bring it up is because I was wondering with your rustic lifestyle. Then, do you think that informs the way that you create in your games, for example? I mean, you obviously have different kind of expertise. Like I know, for instance, that you've mentioned that you do blacksmithing as well. Is that correct? Yeah. That's absolutely incredible. So is that sort of the thing that inspire you and that you put into your games at all, like that kind of thing?
Well, yeah, I do. I mean, I try not to emphasize blacksmithing too much because it's my thing. I don't know. I guess it's kind of like when you go to see like a war movie with someone who's been in the military. It's kind of like, well, they wouldn't really do that. That can get kind of annoying too. So
yeah, I see. No, but I find that amazing. I mean, so I mean, do you have any examples on hand of how that kind of information and that knowledge and that skill
like that?
Oh my god, that's so cool.
Yeah,
that reminds me.
This one I made a while back, but yeah,
that's amazing.
It's just a simple knife. I made it from a railroad spike.
Oh my god. You give this man a railroad spike and he will bring you a throwing dagger. That's incredible.
That's what I love about blacksmithing, though, is you can get raw metal from almost anywhere and make useful tools out of it. You can make tools, you can make weapons, you can make things for your house. And especially even in a fantasy medieval community, the blacksmith is really the heart of it, because almost every other profession requires the tools made at the blacksmith.
Yeah, that's true.
The cooper requires knives and the bands for on their barrels. The thatcher requires special blades and rakes and things like that. They all require metal, and that's really where the blacksmith is the one you need first. In my opinion. I not to get off on too much of a tangent, but I watched this video recently of this guy who went out in the woods with nothing. I mean, literally nothing.
Yeah.
And he made a stone axe, and he built this little house. He made clay tiles for the roof, and then he built a little forge outside. And he went to the river and he scooped this kind of orangey mud, which when it's orange you can tell it's really high in iron content.
Yeah.
And he made these little balls, and he just he put them in this furnace, and as they burned down, he made these, he extracted the iron from it, and then he was able to forge it into tools. And it's just amazing that you can go out with literally absolutely nothing except your body, and be able to make a house and start making tools and all this stuff with just a little bit of knowledge. And that was just astonishing to me.
That's amazing, and it obviously puts a lot into perspective, really, of what someone can be capable of if you take the time to learn these skills. And I think that kind of thing could definitely inform decisions in terms of role-playing games as well. I mean, even that amount of experience. I mean, the only thing I know about blacksmithing, it's not even a fact. It's something. Well, it is kind of. It's just like it's just that I went to. It was a month or two ago. I went to a medieval fair, right? It's a really big one that's held in a place called Tewkesbury, which is quite near where I'm living at the moment. Oh, and it was a site where there was a big battle between the Lancastrians and the forces of York. So this medieval fair happens there every year. But anyway, long story short, they sell a lot of weaponry there. Okay, and this I saw this,
and rightly so.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw this one blade. There's so many swords, as many swords as I've seen in my entire life, and there was this one blade that caught my eye, and it was this really simple straight blade, but it had this really strange dappled effect across the blade. And I asked about it, and the guy told me it was Damascus Steel.
Yeah.
And he was telling me about how they cool it in a different way, and it forms these almost rainbow-like patterns across the blade.
Sure. Yeah.
I find that kind of thing incredibly inspiring, that in real life, there are such wonderful things that blacksmithing can do.
I'm not quite at the level where I can make that yet, because that requires you basically stack the steel. You have to alternate, high carbon and low carbon steel, and you just kind of like make these layers, and you make a billet that you then have to forge weld, which you have to get just to the right temperature where when you hammer it, it's going to weld together. If it's too hot, you're going to burn the steel. If it's too cold, you're not going to get the weld. So I mean, that requires a lot of expertise. It takes years of practice to get that really to the point where you can do it properly. Because if you don't, you'll have delamination and it'll just start coming apart on you, and your knife won't be worth shit.
I don't know, but I appreciate you saying that I might. It's very kind of you. But that's fascinating. I mean, I will ask one final blacksmithing question, because it's just geeking out, because I've never known a blacksmith before in my life. But is there, if you had the tools, what would the one weapon you would make for yourself?
Well, I guess, are we talking like D&D fantasy, or are we just talking about what I would make if I could only make one thing to take with me?
Well, both in that case.
Well, the one basic tool I would make is a knife. I mean, a knife can do just so much. Once you have that initial blade, you can start making other things. And so, you can tie it on the end of a stick and it's a spear. You can make other tools with it. You can carve bone. You can do all these other things. You can strip leather. So you can use it for these other things. Now, if we're talking just what would be a really cool sword to have, then oh man, I guess I'd go with a good old fashioned bastard sword, hand and a half, because it's it's nice and versatile. You can use it one handed, you can use it two handed. I've always been a big fan of those, because I'm a big fan of versatility and having tools that are multi-purpose.
Yeah, that's amazing. I am a proud owner of a bastard sword for that very reason. I got it as a gift, and I was stoked about it. But I think your response with the knife, that's I've never even thought. Of course, you could tie it to a stick and make a spear. So that's a really, really good choice. But anyway, let's direct it more back to role playing games. And so, as mentioned before, Alex is on the hit podcast Roll Up and Die. It's a fantastic podcast. I recommend you go and listen if for some reason you haven't already. And I find the format excellent, where you guys have really great creative discussions about how to go about creating things for your role playing world. And I was wondering, has being on the podcast changed or developed the way that you perhaps prepare material, whether it just be for a game or whether it's going to be one of the supplements that you're going to write? Has there been any change or different kind of method used?
Oh yeah, well, I certainly get more ideas. I mean, with Matt Click and Michael Barker, I mean, they're awesome guys. They're great players, great GMs, and I'm just really fortunate to be doing a podcast with him, because, you know, there's just something great about brainstorming with other players and GMs, you know, because that's really what we're doing. We're sort of brainstorming around, you know, in this, you know, this ether known as the internet. And yeah, so I mean, I often think of ideas, and it was kind of funny. I was editing one of the podcasts, because sometimes Barker usually does the editing, but occasionally he gets something to do, so I have to edit it. And you can tell which ones, because his are better. But but I was listening to it, and I'm hearing this idea, and it's like, oh wow, that's a really good idea. Hey, wait, I said that. I forgot I said it, and it's like, that was a really good idea I had.
Well, I suppose that's a really good way of note taking as well. You just listen to your own podcast again.
Yeah. Well, and that's why for a long time I used to broadcast my games too, because you know, we didn't get a lot of viewers. You know, we weren't like the Provokers, but we had a few people, but and a few diehard fans. But for the most part, it was just, we did it for us, and so that I could go back and look at something in the past. You know, say, oh crap, that they went off map, and I had to make up something, and I forgot to write it down. What was it? You know?
Yeah.
So
I found that quite recently. Yeah, it's really helpful.
What the hell did I say?
Who was that guy again?
Right. What accent did I use for that farmer? You know, yeah. So that definitely helps in that respect. But no, as far as Roll Up and Die goes, yeah, it's been a great opportunity to bounce ideas off other minds, and yeah, it's a blast.
Absolutely. And in regards to your method in terms of creating, then, whether it be for your home games or for your supplements, do you have a particular method of working? Does one differ from the other? Yeah.
Well, it's hard to have a hard and fast method, because I have two kids, and so I when I'm at home, I'm looking after them, so I don't, so that takes up a lot of the time. But no, I mean, I am a terrible writer. As far as like, I write something, and then I go back and I look it over again, and I try to rewrite it again, and then I look it back over, and I have a hard time just writing. I think Tim Kearney was talking about this, where he was, you know, if you're going to write, just write it, no matter how bad it seems, and don't stop, you know. And I've had other people give me the advice too, and I have a hard time sticking to it. we just kind of write and write.
Yeah.
Don't look back. Don't look back. That's right. Because if I look back, I'm going to look at it like, oh crap, I should have said this, you know, and then I get caught in a quagmire.
But I don't think that's because you're a bad writer, Alex. I think that's because you're probably a perfectionist. So going back and doing it again.
Well, that's what I tell myself, but of course, you know.
Of course. That's what we all say. Totally. Oh, excellent.
But yeah, no, as far as designing for critical publishing goes, usually what we do is, again, I like to brainstorm. So I work with some other people like Rob the Swamper Davis and DeVay Brayon Jackson. And I mean, those two guys are great. We get in a hangout, and we just start throwing ideas at each other, and we come out of it excited about writing and excited about the project we're working on. And we really need to do more of that, because we don't do it enough. But yeah, I mean, that gets me thrilled, just talking to people about these ideas.
Absolutely. And I think when you surround yourself with like-minded people that are entirely interested and committed to letting that idea grow, I think you can't really beat that, can you?
Well, and having people with slightly different ideas is good too. Like, you know, Rob and I often have different ideas about certain things, but, you know, I value his input because it makes me think differently. And, you know, I don't want people who just agree with everything I say, because then I'm not going to grow or develop or, you know, come up with anything new. I'll just, you know, keep coming up with stuff out of my own head. And I like being challenged like that.
Yeah, and I think that's for those watching. I think that's some really great advice to take away from Alex. There is to not be afraid to share what you're working on, but also to accept that sometimes a differing opinion or maybe just a different outlook is the
Yeah.
healthiest thing for your creative process. Absolutely.
Yeah, the luckiest thing you can have is someone that you can show your stuff to, and they're a good enough friend to say this is shit.
Yeah,
You know.
definitely.
So
Absolutely. And going back to something, because this is purely from my own curiosity now, because obviously I've had most of my exposure to you, Alex, has been through Roll Up and Die, and on a number of occasions you mentioned your homebrew D&D setting. That
yeah,
I might be mistaken, but is it one that you've used for quite a long time?
yeah, it's been quite a number of years. I've used the same world.
Yeah. I
At
was wondering if
at least 15 years, maybe closer to 20.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. So, because I'm just really curious about it. So, first of all, what is it called, and what is it like? I'm just because I'm actually really intrigued by it.
It's called Arda. It's been inspired greatly by Tolkien's world, and basically, I kind of like to think that it takes place like, you know, many millennia after Tolkien's world, and things have gone downhill and uphill many times, and this is the same kind of the same universe basically. And
okay, that's incredible.
And it started with the same. I started with a single town that sort of the original party sort of left, and I had vague ideas of what the world was like at that point because things had changed quite a bit in all that time. And as they sort of moved out and I started to have adventures for them, the world just grew and grew and grew. And then later on, I had other campaigns that explored different areas. And just over the years, places have been established and fleshed out. And every adventuring party that plays in it leaves behind something. And that's really one of the coolest parts.
It is.
They leave behind these relics and they change the world in certain ways. And like one of my favorites, and I've used this one to Roll Up and Die. So for people who listen to us, I apologize.
No, go ahead, please, because I want to know.
But there was a party who had they were trying to use what was it? This, I forgot the name of the spell. Basically, traveling through shadow.
Shadow Step.
Yeah, but they were crossing through this land that neutralized magic, and so what happened was they were sort of dumped out of this shadow step into this vast desert, and because magic didn't really work well there, it only worked some of the time. So they had to try and figure out, you know, how they're getting out of here, and they knew where they were, and they were in a land where people hated magic and you know, would kill any spellcasters on sight, basically.
Oh, that's cool.
So they encountered, of course, some of these, you know, a patrol of these people. They ended up defeating them, but they needed the shadow step. And of course, this is just a vast, like, it was a big salt flat of a desert, just stark white, hot sun blazing overhead. You know, we need shadow if we're going to get out of here. So they ended up building these corpses into a little cave.
Oh my goodness!
That made this little shadow, and so he cast a spell, and I kind of described this. You have this howling gate of shadow opening within this, you know, this corpse structure.
Oh my god, that's so amazing!
One of the most disturbing images. Yeah. So they ended up getting out of there, but this structure is still sitting out there in this desert. So one day there'll be another party who'll like be crossing this desert and see this structure of bodies and wonder why is it there? You know,
that is cool.
And I love these little relics that are sort of left behind by adventuring parties.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I was talking to Tim and James about Dragon Grin on this show, we were having a discussion about the benefits of a shared world, and maybe not in terms of its creation, but for people that stick around and really get to witness like this world change as, you know, different people come in and affect it and stuff. I think there's nothing better than that ongoing tapestry of legends that could feature. I mean, can I ask? So the Arda, has it spanned editions then? For example.
Yeah. We I think I started in second edition and went through
Yeah.
third and then fifth. Yeah.
I love it because my headcanon, this is what I always use for my games, is that if you basically take edition
Mhm.
and you change it to era.
Yeah.
So first era, second era,
neat. Yeah, I like that.
era. Yeah. So basically any edition that you're using has its particular place in time. So all of my 3.5 work, which I did quite a lot of, it still exists, but it was a long time ago in a different era. Now I'm in the 5th age. So that's how I like to approach that kind of thing. But that's amazing. I love the idea, especially of that really macabre.
And it's so cool for a DM as well, because the world is organic. It just grows, and it's so easy to run a game there because you know it so well. It's so comfortable.
Yes.
You know that it's history. You know, you don't have to think about it. You don't have to research it. It's there. You know, because you've been there all the time.
No, so, that's a really good point as well. No, that's absolutely spot on. Now, in terms of games that you like to run, I have noticed that you seem to quite like horror. Would I be right in saying?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I kind of think that a lot of D&D is really horror too.
Yes.
Although it's not usually run that way, because if you really think about it, most of the things that an adventurer would run into would be horror if they were in our world. You know, if a bunch of orcs broke into someone's house to loot it, that would be a horror movie. That would not be, you know. So I mean, you know, and some of the things that adventurers go and tackle are pretty much horror as well. So I don't see it's a blurry line for me, really.
I think that's excellent though, and I think absolutely D&D is rife with places where you can really play with a horror structure. But I suppose my question to you, because you seem experienced in setting that particular tone. I mean, I don't know who would have listened to it or have watched it, but there was The Pipeline, which was a game that you ran.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
That was, and I will say to you right now, that was excellent. That was an excellent example of how you can build tension over a short campaign, and I'm sure you could do it for a longer one as well. And I was wondering, is there any particular principle that you feel is key to telling horror in role-playing games at all?
Well, I think you hit on it. Well, one of the big things is building the tension. You don't just you don't just throw horrible things at them and hope they get scared. You want to build that tension slowly. You want to hint at things. I was running a Call of Cthulhu, short campaign, and the way I sort of handled the madness is it was tied to the supernatural. So the more insane you sort of became, the more of the supernatural you could see and sense.
Yes.
So
excellent.
So what would happen? They, at the very beginning, they sort of encountered these horrific things. This was in a modern setting, and so they're at a bar, sort of talking about what they saw. And one of them was facing this television, like all bars and pubs, they have televisions all around now, unfortunately nowadays. And I said, there's a regular news program going on, and you're watching the news feed, and it says, president goes abroad to discuss treaty negotiations, and you are about to die. And he's like, what? I says, it said the president's going overseas. I said, you said I'm about to die? No, I didn't say that. And so I'm kind of, trying to get him to understand what his character's sort of feeling, because the character's starting to see these things on the screen as he's starting to like lose his grip with reality, and the TV starting to essentially talk to him, to give him these messages. And but I as a GM am denying that I said that, so it was kind of cool because he was getting confused and a little slightly rattled about that. So
that's excellent. And I think sorry,
well, I was just gonna say that the trick with horror is getting the player to sort of feel what their character is going through, because that's really one of the hardest parts. Is getting them to feel that to some degree.
I absolutely love that. I mean, I have a particular interest in citing particular emotions and moods from my players. If I want them to be panicky, I like them to be quite panicky when making their rolls, that kind of thing. And I think I think there is a particular skill to particularly with horror, if you want to get under someone's skin to unnerve them. And I think just from what you just said there, that's masterful. That and you're going to die, sort of mentioning it offhand and then denying that you ever said it. That is absolutely perfect. It is perfect. I adore that. Do you think there are any other techniques for horror that you would recommend the viewers watching to give it a go if they've never ever done a horror sort of vibe before?
Well, I mean, it's a lot easier if you're doing it in person. I found it really a lot more difficult to do it through Hangouts.
Definitely,
because you know, if you're at a table, you can lower the lights, you can light candles, you can set the mood, and just through your body language and how you do things, it just comes across better in person. You know,
of course.
But even if you can't do that, I find that one of the things that affects humans the most is smell. Because that is like directly connected to our brain essentially. And I've experienced this myself. I mean, I've been in situations where you smell something and it just triggers these memories and emotions.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, and you know, it might be a perfume from someone that you used to date, or it could be a smell that you smelled when you were a kid at your grandmother's house, or whatever it happens to be. And it automatically just like, bam, you feel you're there. You feel that. And so I really like to, if I can, use smells, describe smells as much as, you know, to things that they might have encountered, because that really tends to pull them into the scene more. And then, like I said, just building up the tension and describing what they might see, not necessarily what they see. You know, you said there might have been a shadow moving over there. Maybe it was just you because your flashlight was over here. So maybe it was just your shadow. It's probably just your shadow. Don't worry about it. You know, and so you kind of get them to start thinking in that kind of paranoid way.
I think that's something that a lot of people can learn from, and it's something that I'm sure most people would recognize is the Jaws effect, which is most of the time you don't see the shark, right. You don't see it at all. You just have a musical leitmotif, the dun 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 dun, or in your case in a role-playing game, you're giving them a certain smell or a certain feeling, and then that they can trigger that to what they're about to face. Which is something you did amazingly in the pipeline. I cannot recommend it highly enough for people to go and listen to, because it was excellent. I loved it so much.
One of the better games I've seen, a really neat mechanic is Dread. I don't know if you've seen that game.
Yeah, I've never actually played it, unfortunately, but I would love to.
I haven't had the chance either, but I watched it on Will Wheaton's tabletop, and he did a really good job with it.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, just that mechanic is really brilliant for an in-person game, because the tension of the Dread Tower, as you have to pull,
it's the tower, isn't it? Of course, yeah.
Yeah, as you have to pull the little blocks of wood out, you know, so it adds this really physical manifestation of the tension there, you know, and I thought that it's just a really brilliant mechanic to build that kind of tension. Now, you know, it doesn't work for a long campaign. You couldn't use Dread. You couldn't have a Dread campaign.
You'd have a nervous
one-night session.
Is what you'd have.
Right, but for a one-night session, you can't beat that sort of thing for building the tension. But you can do that as a GM in other, you know, using other things too, like an hourglass. You know, you can get the little egg timer, and you say, you know, something's going to happen, and you just kind of turn it over, you know, and whatever that happens to be, even if, you know, or you hear a sound and their footsteps getting closer, and then you flip it, and they don't.
That's terrifying.
Maybe they don't know why you flipped it. It's like, why did you turn that? Turn what? You know?
Oh God! It's the ambiguity of it is the problem, isn't it? You're like, what does that mean?
People are going to create much more terrifying images in their heads than you could possibly paint for them.
That's incredible. That is some really good advice, guys. Those watching, next time you're at a table with some players, bring an hourglass or a sun thing. Oh my God, yeah.
I've been trying to figure out a way to do that effectively online too, but I haven't really.
Oh, that is interesting. I'm sure maybe if you get a timer of some type upon, I don't know. Well, if anyone knows, in the comments, that would be great.
Make it happen.
Make it happen. Sort of segueing through the horror genre,
sure,
and also connected to the time that I briefly shared with you on Roll Up and Die. You mentioned very briefly something that made me very excited, and you, if I'm not mistaken, have been working on, if not finished, something about zombies, if I'm correct.
Yeah, still working on it. It's an adventure that I'm going to be publishing called The Unquiet Dead, and it is essentially my attempt to bring the modern sort of zombie genre into D&D. Now there are zombies in D&D, as we all know, but those are more just they're kind of like wizard automatons.
That's a curse.
They can attack, bite, and hurt you and all that, but they're pretty easy fodder for the most part for any seasoned adventurer. But I wanted to bring in like the Walking Dead zombies, the kind where they're terrifying and they stink and they're disgusting, and if they bite you, you're going to become one of them. And you're going to turn. And once you get that bite, I want them to feel that once they get that bite, that's like a death sentence.
Oh my God.
What's going to become of me now? It's either that, or maybe if you're lucky, someone, if one of these things bites your hand, if you're lucky, one of your companions will cut your arm off so you don't turn.
That's amazing.
I want to bring in that kind of terror into it. So,
I love that.
Yeah.
Are they going to be like the rage? Have you got any like the rage zombies from 28 Days Later? Because I find them horrendous.
Without being too spoiler, I try to include a variety of zombies, and
sure.
You've got kind of the slow shamblers, but you also have occasionally the fresher ones that are the sprinters. They can come charging at you. And then you've got some that have been in water, so they're kind of that you find in sewers, and they're kind of bloated. Those are the ones that you can be infected because you'll cut into them with your sword, and you'll just get inundated with this fluid that just bursts upon you, and now you've got this infected fluid on you. You've got the crawlers that have been so damaged, but they can still, as long as they have a good arm and a jaw, they can still be dangerous.
Oh my goodness me! And I think that what you just said there about you cutting into one of these bloated zombies and that sort of horrendous liquid, I think once again is buying into what you were saying earlier about describing the effect of the senses, because that's how you experience it in real life. I think that is terrifying.
That's right, and I think we've talked about it a lot on Roll Up and Die, where you want to address all the senses. I mean, a lot of GMs fall into the pattern of just using visual stuff. You see this, but what do they smell? What do they taste? What do they hear? If they're walking, I remember it was the second Indiana Jones movie, I think, where they're walking through this room, and you hear this crunching beneath their feet, and they look down, and the whole floor is just covered with insects. So hearing that crunch and feeling that crackle beneath your feet, once you realize it's the floor is just alive with insects, that changes the whole thing. You could tell someone the floor is covered with bugs, but when you describe the crunch when you're stepping down, when and they feel it and they hear it, it paints a very different picture.
Absolutely, I find that amazing. It's so evocative. Just thinking of just those few examples already. So guys, keep your eyes peeled, and they should keep their eyes peeled at DriveThruRPG Critical Hit Publishing, which is how you release your work. And I wanted to talk about that because I really wanted to ask, first of all, do you have a particular favorite element of writing supplements in general? Is there a particular area that you really like focusing on, or
let's see. I mean, I like, well, most of the stuff I try to do, or with people I work with, we try to focus more on immersive role playing than the mechanics.
Yeah.
To me, like one of my favorite supplements that we did was potions and poisons.
Yes, I was going to ask about this one.
and there's a lot of stuff out there, and certainly we have some mechanics in there, but what I really wanted to do with it was, with each potion and poison, I want that description. I want a paragraph or 2 or 3 describing this stuff. What does it do? How does it affect someone? Where does it come from? What can you do to cure it? If someone wants to make this thing, what do they have to go through to acquire the materials necessary? Because every single potion or poison or antidote can be an adventure seed. That's one of the things I mentioned in the Unquiet Dead, is the idea that, do you want this plague to be curable or not? And if so, how much? So you could turn this entire thing into a campaign where the adventurers are looking for a cure to stop this zombie plague from destroying the world now.
Oh my
so
goodness.
they're now on this long quest to acquire what they need to cure it. But I love all those descriptions. We're working on one now that I'm really excited about, called it's part of the cinematic environs.
Yes. Oh wow.
It's called Cityscapes, and with all the cinematic environs, one thing we do is we have excerpts from the diary of Artemis Hale, who's this adventurer who he's kind of an explorer, and so we just have these little things describing his what's going on at that time in relation to the section that we're putting it in. So in the Cityscapes, and we're talking about different types of laws and so forth, and so the one of them is going to start off with him writing from a jail cell. He's been arrested, and describing this insane law that says you can't do X. It's one of those kind of cities. So yeah, I mean, to me, I really love all the descriptive, what most people would call fluff. To me, that's the meat and potatoes. To me, the mechanics of the fluff. The mechanics are necessary, but they're only necessary in that they do what they need to do and then stay out of the way. So
definitely.
Yeah, that's
so. Yeah, I was going to ask: is there? So this is the Cityscapes is coming soon. Then,
relatively.
Is there a particular element that you've stumbled across whilst creating this that you think is something that you've really taken a shine to? Like, is there a favorite element of creating a cityscape, for example, that you like?
Well, it's funny because each one of these seems to be getting bigger, and it's like we're trying to decide how much we want to rein ourselves in, but a cityscape essentially is tough because it's not just one environment. A city is hundreds of environs. So what we're essentially doing is we're kind of borrowing from Fate, where Fate has these aspects that you can put on a scene, right?
Yeah.
So we're doing something like that, where you can have these city aspects that you can put in different locations. So if you go into a market, it can have the aspect of crowded. It can have the aspect of noisy. It can have, so it has these things that can affect what goes on there. We're also exploring. We're also coming up with some ideas regarding a city's alignment, and using, because I never liked alignment when it comes to people and individual characters, but with the city it actually kind of works, because what you're definitely doing is, this is essentially how the city operates. Now individuals within it can operate differently, but overall this is the kind of mood of the city. Is it a lawful good city where it's kind of almost this idyllic city with the guards who are well dressed and saying hi to everyone as they walk by, and it's just a very pleasant sort of place. But then they have rules that say if you walk on the grass you'll get fined, or if you hold hands in public or whatever. And then you go through the various different types, and then of course you get to some of the evil ones, where you have these draconian cities where there are gladiatorial games, and there are run by a dictator and that kind of thing. So that those alignment systems kind of work for a city.
No, I love that. That's a really great idea.
So that's kind of fun. So we're coming up with some really interesting new kind of city mechanics for this, because again, I'm really into the aspect thing. We're really enjoying that, and I'm coming up with some right now. I'm writing samples of different typical settings you might find in a city, different kinds of locations, and describing what they might be like. Again, like I haven't got the tavern yet. I'm still in the bees, but like a bathhouse, things like that. A bathhouse is going to be like it's going to be dim, it's going to be slippery, and it's going to be sultry. So you've got, and we try to have basically 3 for each one. We're recommending no more than 3, of these aspects for each location. And so, yeah, I'm really loving that. And I think it's going to work really well for people.
That's amazing. And that is definitely something to look forward to on DriveThruRPG through Critical Hit Publishing. I wanted to ask actually, because I was wondering if you have a particular supplement that is available at the moment that you would deem to be your favorite, and if so, why?
Oh man, it's hard. I really do like potions and poisons, again, because I haven't seen much like it out there.
No.
And I like I say, I love the descriptions of the poisons and the potions and where you find them. We also took a great deal of thought into making non-magical potions, because one thing that I never liked was the idea of the magical Walmart, magical store. People walk in, I'll take 10 potions, I'll take the wand of wonder, and how about that deck of many things?
4+1 swords, absolutely.
Right. Yeah, that always bugged me. So, but I like the idea of non-magical things, especially for healing. Like, you might have a salve that maybe heals, 1d4, or you might have a tea that, if you drink it during a short rest, for example, you get extra healing, that kind of thing. So, I like these because they can add to not only what's available to them, but it can add to the flavor of the story. So now they have the salve. So now they can describe, I'm putting the salve on where the orc hit me with that hammer, I boil the water for this tea that the old woman gave me, and sprinkle it into the cup, and so it suddenly this what can be a boring sort of sitting around a fire thing becomes a bit more interesting, because now you have this stuff, and it can also give them opportunities to find this stuff too.
Yes, absolutely.
If someone has herbalism, now they can use it. They can say, okay, well, I have herbalism. I'm gonna look for an herb that I can make some sort of healing salve with, or a tea, or whatever it happens to be.
Definitely, and I think there's no end to the amount of creativity that you can get from taking a very simple aspect of your world. In this particular example, a herb of some type, and it actually becoming almost a plot point, just for the fact that that is now what you need to heal, for example, in a game where you fight quite a lot. So no, that's absolutely genius. And once again, you can get that DriveThruRPG, Critical Hit Publishing. Whilst we're here, actually, is there anything else that you'd like to plug? Because this is kind of why I do this as well, obviously, for people to talk about.
No, those are really the big things I'm working on. Is Critical Hit Publishing and Roll Up and Die. Those are my big focuses at this time, anyway.
And great focuses they certainly are. So I'm going to ask one last question, because hopefully we can talk about this for a little bit. I was just wondering, do you have any campaigns running currently, or you will be running in the future, that you're particularly excited about and would like to share something with us?
Well, let's see. I'm going to be playing in a campaign which is coming up. It's actually the third part of a grander campaign. We basically, I ran the first one, and Rob Davis ran the second one, and then Steve Fillmore is going to run the third one. But they all take place in the same world, and they all sort of have an effect on the other. So we made a decision early on that we were going to run these 3 campaigns, and that each one was going to sort of affect the other one. So I'm going to be playing in Steve's as soon as he's actually going to be in Ireland for a few months or something like that, for job training. So as soon as he gets settled in, he's probably going to start his. And so we'll be playing in that. So I'm going to try to do something a bit different there. My Icorian campaign, which is another one still in my world, that one is starting up again, and Ikoria is very interesting because I decided to really go outside my comfort zone in a lot of ways. Like I included Warforged, which I've been hesitant to sort of include in my world. But I made Ikoria kind of like this. It's kind of like a Greek city state where it's there's high learning and culture and it's run by a senate.
That's really cool.
And so it's this sort of jewel on the western sea, and it's bordered, so it's kind of isolated as well. But of course, there's a new threat because it would be boring if there weren't.
Of course.
Drawing these. And I also decided to include flying ships because
I remember seeing that.
Yeah, I like flying ships, and so I decided that this was going to be the place where there are flying ships. So.
That is so awesome.
Yeah, so I'm really, and this is a new section of my world which I haven't previously gamed in. I haven't done any campaigns here, so I'm free to do a lot of new things. So that's kind of exciting for me.
That's really incredible, and obviously that can all be seen. Are all of these broadcasted, or are some of them not going to be?
We're probably going to start broadcasting these again. We had stopped for a while because we were doing other stuff, and I ran like a little short, like I said, Call of Cthulhu campaign, and we did some other stuff. It's kind of take a break from fantasy for a while, but now we're excited to get back into it. So, we're probably going to start broadcasting that again. Maybe next Tuesday.
Oh, well, in that case, then, guys, definitely keep your eyes peeled for that, because there's so much fine-tuned and insightful creativity in everything that I've seen you do. You touch things and they turn to gold or collapse into ash if you're doing horror. But it's really a marvel. And I'd just like to take this opportunity to say that when I go anywhere, basically, I listen to Roll Up and Die, and I find that you, Alex, you have such a measured and entertaining and creative insight when it comes to basically anything in your role-playing game area, and I think that's probably a lot to do with a bunch of experience that you clearly have.
But by that you mean a bunch of mistakes, then that's usually the euphemism for the euphemism for I made a whole lot of mistakes. So hopefully learn from them.
We all do. We're grateful.
Thank you very much.
So is there anything else that you'd like to plug, or would you like to give me a sign off?
No, that's it. We can sign off.
Amazing. So plug your channel.
Okay, so you can go to criticalhitpublishing.com if you don't want to go to DriveThruRPG and do a search there. My channel is on YouTube is Captain Gothnog. You can go find me there. And Roll Up and Die is Facebook/Roll Up and Die, I think. So
yeah,
we can be found there, and we're on iTunes, so that we're easy enough to find that way too. Hopefully we're going to be in some other venues. We're trying to find other ways to get the podcast out, which I'm not really experienced with such things, so I'm kind of fumbling in the dark for that. So hopefully that'll work.
That's amazing. Well, watch out for Captain Gothnog fumbling in the dark, because you never know where he'll turn up next. And it's always good because he always has a gold mine of experience to share with us all. So thank you ever so much, Alex, for joining me. It's been great, and I've really enjoyed speaking to you and getting to know you a bit better. It's been absolutely fantastic. So thank you very much. And to those of you watching, thank you ever so much. If you've made it this far, if you like this video, give it a like. If you'd like to see more of this kind of thing, then perhaps give me a subscribe, or not. We're all friends here, or are we? So, would you like to say goodbye, Captain Gothnog?
All right. Goodbye, folks. Thanks for listening, and definitely subscribe to Rob's channel. He's awesome, and he's only going to get more and more awesome until he overshadows the rest of us.
More and more something. Thank you ever so much. And I hope that all of your performances are up to standard.